I started recording.
Okay.
If you could مثلا clap عشان I could sync up the audio with the video. Perfect. Oh, it's
I'm gonna suck this off you.
that's crazy. This is interview with Mohamed or Slooh. So let's start off with the biographical questions. Where did you grow up?
Local, born and raised in Bahrain.
Hello. What school did you go to?
I went to Nasim International School.
Okay. How old are you now?
I am 37.
Okay. Where do you currently work?
I work as IT support in an international bank.
Okay. What did you listen to growing up?
I went through a bunch of different phases, I would say. I got into the music which I currently listen to now, which is, let's say, rock and metal. This, I would say, early 2000s. So during high school, that was basically it. Before that, I'd listen to a bunch of different things, whether it's pop, rap, whatever. But I settled finally, I think, during my high school phase.
Do you have any other artists in your family?
No, it's just me, the black sheep of the family.
All right. So did you study production professionally, or was it just a hobby?
It's mainly a hobby that's gone crazy for me. So no, I did not study it professionally. No formal education. It was just self-taught. From just basically picking up any guitar and trying to learn through internet videos, or, well, back then we didn't have YouTube, but let's say just reading either magazines or things like that, and eventually getting into recording. Even that, I just had whatever free program I can get my hands on, and had no way of learning except just trial and error, and it just grew from there. Over time, I was able to properly learn it on my own. And built up a lot of hardware, and eventually got to the space. And I think just self-taught and just slowly growing it over the time.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So moving on to questions about your life relating to art. What is the turning point in your life that made you take this art seriously?
I would say after I graduated from high school. I mean, then I was still playing with a group of friends, the first cover band, just friends trying to learn from each other and everything. And then when I started attending the first gigs that I've gone to in Bahrain, there was one in 2004, FVF, for whoever might remember it. That one, I think, really inspired me to want to actually pursue this properly. But when I first got into recording, I would say around 2008 or 9 is where I really wanted to take it seriously and actually invest in this and learn it properly.
All right. Is there a specific artist that inspired you growing up?
It's a bunch of different artists through different phases of my life. I mean, when I first started playing guitar, I would listen to System of a Down a lot of the time, so Darar Malakian was a big inspiration. But then me starting to learn drums at some point, I was listening to the band Meshuggah, so Thomas Hawke was a big inspiration as well on playing drums. What else? These are, I'd say, like the main two, but like for brief periods. And then it just trying to learn from every band I listen to, every artist I come across.
What is your artist philosophy?
Don't know if I have one, to be honest. When I try to come up with music, I like, let's say, topics that maybe just get you to think and question everything you know. So these topics really interest me, whether it's about society, the norms, whether it's culture, and the way things are going, what they might end up being at some point. So whenever I'm writing anything, this is usually kind of what drives me. But for me, running a studio, I would say it's a more simplistic approach, which is just try to offer the help to the community which we didn't have growing up. So just making things accessible for everyone. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. I think you mentioned you have a band currently. What's your band called?
Currently, I'm in two main bands. The first one is Smoldering and Forgotten, SIF for short, which has been active since 2005. Then the second one, which is Helionite, and this, I believe, has been active since 2016.
Awesome. In your band's work, is there a specific message that you try to deliver with your music?
With SIF, whatever lyrics I write are usually driven by like a very theatrical storytelling. But even if it's like, for example, the last album we put out, each track is its own standalone story, but they all kind of tell one big story across the whole album, which is like the birth, let's say, of a society or a culture, the phases it has to go through until eventually what it can do to cause itself to collapse. So the whole album takes you on this journey, but each individual song is its standalone story. They're not directly linked or related to each other. This is with SIF. With Helionite, I'm not actually the main lyric writer. It's the guitarist Amar and the frontman. He would be interested, I'd say, in more, okay, this is cliche, but like the darker side of humanity, let's say. So he would talk about topics like, let's say, witchcraft, war, things like that, I think. But you'd have to ask him for his lyrical philosophy.
Yeah. Is there like a specific meaning behind your own work to you?
It's just a release for me, I think. Just a form of escapism. So it's not like whatever we're writing is just, we treat it as just fun storytelling, like a what if type of situation. And just explore that. I think this is what gives it its meaning.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that your art is important to society? And if you do, why do you think so?
To society? Probably not. But I mean, for me, it might be a selfish reason. That it's just my way of escapism, let's say. But I think, yes, there is something. If whoever is curious enough to want to read about it and actually dive into what we're saying behind the music, if anything, it's just an entertaining story, you know, at least that. But maybe more is just invoke some thought, you know, about bigger pictures, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to like questions more about your own art. Why did you choose production specifically?
Production, I think for me, I would justify it as I like dealing with gadgets. I like hardware. Like the creative side of it was, okay, it served its own purpose. But for me, I just had way more fun dealing with, you know, learning software or just buying an expensive piece of hardware and just figuring out how it's supposed to work. And I would always call myself a hoarder. So I just buy things even if I never needed them. I just keep them until I eventually learn how to use them. And over time, it accumulated to the point of, why not just open the studio as a business? And I don't know if you can see, but yeah, I just have a ton of gear just lying around everywhere.
All right. So you're mostly familiar with metal, but have you tried exploring other genres?
There is a brief period where after I opened the studio, the musicians who would come here to practice, I would enjoy listening to them practice. So there was a time where I tried, like, let's say, psychedelic prog rock, stoner rock type of music. I tried that for a while. It was fun. I also tried, let's say, punk type of music, alternative. There were different phases, and it was fun. It was a good learning experience.
Can you tell me about your experience with the metal community here in Bahrain or generally in the GCC?
I tried, okay, so with the two bands that I'm in, with Smoldering and Forgotten, I think our main thing is, because we do a lot of like like I said, theatrical storytelling. We try to show that in our, like, let's say, live production. So we take our stage presence and the stage show like very seriously, and every time we have the chance, we see what we can do to kind of push the standards of what a Bahraini band can do on the stage, instead of just coming and performing and that's it. So we would do, like, we'd focus on things like, okay, the type of clothing to wear, if we're doing any type of makeup, for example, lighting, all of these things, synchronizing things, using backing tracks, but like in the most efficient way possible, just to add an atmosphere and ambience across the venue. With Helionite, I think it's more driven by just putting on the best show possible, and we network a lot. So with Helionite, we've been fortunate enough to play in Czech Republic, for example, last year in Obscene Extreme. And collectively, between both bands, we've played in Dubai, Qatar, Amman, and obviously, okay, other than the shows in Bahrain. So we were fortunate enough to actually experience GCC, let's see.
What's the most thing that you like about production?
Most thing? Just understanding, let's say, other people's creative process. Because that, to me, kind of inspires me to rethink my own as well, and not just be too settled in my own comfort space. And with every new band and every new artist that say who wants to record, I try to figure out, okay, what can we do to make this sound different than anything else I've worked on? So I brainstorm with them as well, and actually get them involved in what do you want to sound like, and instead of just this style of music, this is how you're supposed to sound like. Like, I try my best to not say you're supposed to or you must or things like that. I try to experiment as much as possible, and I get surprised with the results most of the time.
When it comes to both drumming or production, is there a specific thing that motivates you to work on making art?
I don't know. I think it's just wanting to see the Bahraini scene prove itself, and I think we have, honestly. I think all the artists and bands here have delivered 110% and really proven that Bahrain as a scene, in terms of artists, audience, is actually a force to be recognized. So this usually is what keeps me going.
So I want to talk about any other artists in general. Do you know the other two artists in this project, and what is your experience with them?
By them you mean Abdullah and Hamad, correct?
Yes.
Abdullah, I've known him since I first started learning anyway, so it's been 20 plus years of friendship first, and then, let's say, colleagues in music. So that in itself is already a big history lesson. Hamad, I have met him briefly a bunch of times. I admire his work. I listen to his releases all the time, but I haven't had the chance to actually work with him on anything yet. So hopefully one time soon. We'll see.
Yeah. I want to move on to some other questions. Do you have any other hobbies that inspire you to make this work? For example, video games or watching movies and such.
For a brief period, I started learning about photography, and I'm attending, for example, gigs that I don't play in. I just show up with a camera and just see what I can do. You know, it's still just a fun side hobby, but it gives me another way to look at these events. That, okay, when I'm on stage, for example, and someone is trying to take photos or videos, what can I do to set the stage correctly to make an interesting shot? You know, so that gave me a different way of looking at things. There was a brief period as well. I'm still learning this, but I got into learning how to program lighting, you know, so stage lights, and how to synchronize it with our performance. So that was a whole other set of skills that I didn't know anyone who knew them properly at the time. So I'm still trying to find my way learning it and see how I can add it into our shows, for example, and how to really get the full experience.
If you could go back in time to your younger self, what's one piece of advice you're going to give to them?
It's two pieces of advice. I think they might contradict each other, but I think try to understand what I'm thinking, as they say. Number one, don't take yourself too seriously. don't be afraid to have fun with this, and have fun with the people that are around you, and just try to learn from the whole thing. Don't be too strict on yourself and too limiting and box yourself into a certain sound. There's nothing wrong with just exploring and trying things out and see what it is you actually like. But at the same time, on the opposite side, do take yourself seriously in terms of discipline and learning it properly. Master your craft, as they say. Don't just rely on like the easiest ways to do things. Take the time to actually invest in yourself and learn your craft as cleanly, as thoroughly as possible, I would say, so that when it's time for you to deliver, you deliver nothing short of the best possible version of you, I would say.
All right, this concludes our interview. Thank you so much.
No problem.